Larian Studios came out and they said, "We're not going to be making any DLC for Baldur's Gate 3." So originally the plan was, "Hey, you know what? We should do DLC. It's gonna be a lot of fun." But then they said their heart just wasn't really in it when they were trying to do it. They felt that they hadn't really moved on from Baldur's Gate 3 yet. Will be doing some tweaks. I think they're adding some story beats for certain characters and that sort of thing. But yeah, when they were doing the DLC, they said they started on it and they had all these new ideas that they wanted to try out. And part of that has to do with the fact that Baldur's Gate 3 is based on what fifth edition being excuse me, fifth edition D&D, and there are certain things in there that they just said, "Screw it, we're not gonna follow the rules." For example, one of the rules I saw as an example was that 5th edition says you can only be attuned to 3 magic items at a time, whereas in Baldur's Gate, they were like, "Nah, we'll just let you attune to as many as you want." So things like that, they forewent the rules, but then they thought, "Oh, let's do some DLC," and they were like, "Would we be going a bit too off the rails here?" And they could also see that the team was mostly doing it not because they really wanted to do it. They weren't really, "Oh, we have all these other stories that we want to tell," or that sort of thing. It was just more of, "We're doing DLC because people expect DLC. We feel like we have to do it." And because of that, their heart just wasn't in it, and they were like, "Okay, we're forcing it as opposed to letting it come naturally like it did on the main game." And we're worried that the magic that worked in the main game would not apply to DLC because we're not putting our full soul into it. And so because of that, they said, "You know what? We've done our job. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It doesn't need anything else. We're done. We're going to move on." And yeah, so a lot of people were thinking that the DLC issue had to do a bit with Wizards of the Coast and taking the IP back. But Larian Studio says, "No, it was our own decision. It wasn't Wizards of the Coast. It was 100% us. We were just, whatever, we're done with it." And if we're being entirely honest, we're probably never going to do another Baldur's Gate because, they did take back the IP. That whole deal is done. But we're going to move on to other things now. And we're going to, like they were saying, there were things that they wanted to try. And with the way the world works and all that, that might not be able to work very well. But maybe we'll be able to try some of those in a different game. We can experiment around and we have a little more freedom to do what we want. So, yeah. So no DLC coming for Baldur's Gate 3. If you had a lot of fun with it, sorry, but at least the game has a lot of replayability, so you can go back and try something new.